listening to The Kula Ring, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carman Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to The Kula Ring. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carman Perry. Carman, how are you doing? I feel like it's been a while since we've recorded one of these.
Yeah, it has been a while. I'm doing well, and I've got to say, I feel like we jumped into the actual recording from our pre-show chat and banter in kind of almost record time. Like we said, well, why don't we hit record? And then you just hit record. I mean, there was no pause, there was no deep breath. So,
I did
folks,
take a sip of water.
If we have completely botched this opening, you have my deepest apologies, and we promise to return your money.
Yep, every penny. But
So
I am looking forward to today's show. We've got somebody on who has been making a lot of waves within the manufacturer that they work at and doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah. I've got to say, and this isn't going to be helpful for anybody who ever wants to hire me to do anything for them, but I feel in some way like I did some of my best work in my 20s. Like I really feel like I was productive. It was a time when I was able to just make some things happen in the organizations that I worked in, and a time of rapid advancement. So, and today we're going to speak to somebody who is in their 20s and doing just that. So if I'm trying to regain some youth and live vicariously throughout the course of this episode, I apologize.
Well, there's enough gray hair in each of our beards and hair, what there is of that.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Let's get on with it.
Indeed.
Nobody wants to know about our decrepit state.
Yes, exactly. So joining us today is Alex Lovdahl. Alex is the Digital Experience Manager at Brandt. Welcome to the Kula Ring, Alex.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolute pleasure, Alex. Why don't we just get started with a bit of an introduction to Brandt and your role there, if you can just give our listeners a bit of that.
Yeah, so Brandt is a pretty diverse ag company. So on one side of the business, we manufacture fertilizers, but they're kind of special fertilizers with their own technology. So they got some uniqueness to them. And then on the other side of the business, we're a retailer where we're located in Illinois. So we have 26 physical locations here in Illinois that farmers can go to get all their inputs for their farm. So seed, chemical, fertilizer, even agronomic advice, you name it. So that's kind of the 1-2 punch of the company in short term. And then what I do for Brandt is, so I'm a digital experience manager, or at least that's what it says on my business card. But in short, if you're looking at a screen and it's got our logo on it, it's one of our projects, a product, it's going to come through me. So websites, apps, email marketing, digital advertising, all the fun stuff we think of when we hear digital is kind of coming through me and my computer here.
It's very cool. And I one term you used on there, I just want to just grab onto a little bit because we've had other people say this as well. I believe it was Mike Elliott from GE Power talked about marketing products as opposed to marketing projects. And that you use that word, I think, is indicative of an understanding of the role of these things that we build within your organizations. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'd always thought of them as products, I guess, in my head, but always called them projects because that's how they're discussed around here at the office. And then actually, I was listening to your podcast whenever I got introduced to it, found that episode, and I listened to that, and I'm like, it just kind of clicked and made clear sense that like these are products. They are projects to me at the time whenever I'm building and creating and developing, but the end result is a product that we can continue on and adapt to and adjust to kind of make it perfect for the market we're trying to serve, whether that's an internal market with employees only, if it's a product for them, or a digital product for customers or end users or something like that. So like I said, I always thought of it as a project in my head, and then finally clicked like, oh man, it is a product. Like this is how I can kind of maybe use terminology to sell ideas and get things done around here. So
I really love the fact that that episode has landed with you and is making some impact. So perhaps we'll have to check back in like a year or so and just see how changing the conversation within Brandt around digital products, what impact that has. So that'll be a great fodder for
sure.
Our second recording.
Yeah, especially like sometimes projects get thought of as when they're done, and they're over with. And so when I talk about it as a product, it's kind of a continuation. You can continue to work on them and upgrade and improve, which is so important with some of the digital tools we're creating.
Well, especially, I mean, if you compare it against the products that Brandt makes, the things that you learn from the usage of certain fertilizers are going to be used to improve that product over time. And why should it be any different with something digital like an app or a website? Yeah. Cool.
I love that we're chatting in the ag space as well, because
Yeah.
like growing up in the potato belt of New Brunswick, Canada, I feel like I know my first job was in potatoes. So it's so this is like almost like old home week.
Yeah, I've weeded many gardens and I still hate it.
That'll be your ag cred,
It's all I've got.
man. Well, you got to take what you got.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly from looking at your LinkedIn bio too, you've spent some time on a farm as well. So
Yeah, that's kind of where we got started, or how I got started. I grew up in small town America where some of the only jobs available were working on a farm. So it was almost like not an option. If you wanted to work, you were going to work on a farm when you were younger. But I mean, I loved it. I absolutely loved working on the farm. And the place where I worked, not only did we have, a couple thousand acres of corn and soybeans, but we also ran a greenhouse where we sold flowers to people. And we had a produce stand where we kind of grew our own vegetables and stuff and sold those as well. So I worked on a farm and I got my ag background there. And then it was a small business at the time. So I really learned a lot about business and how you can operate and kind of congruently with the two. So it was really, really practical for me to work there.
And I want to kind of continue this career conversation because I mean so I think Alex, a really compelling thing about your story thus far is that in some ways you've kind of made your own and have carved your own path at Brandt. So why don't you just continue on with that? Because I think, of course, after the work on the farm, you found yourself in university, and then after that, you're at Brandt pretty quickly, if my memory serves.
Yeah, so worked on the farm, still worked there while I was in college, but I was actually a customer of Brandt's when I was working on the farm. So I got to know people there, and I always liked the way they operated their business and treated me as a customer. So I was always kind of drawn to them. I didn't go to college saying, "Oh, I'm going to go work for Brandt someday." That was never like what I said. But what I did find was I'd be in class and we'd get a project. I remember one that was we were supposed to come up with an idea for an app. That was the kind of the class project. And in my head, I'm like, all right, well, I want to do something different that nobody else in class might be able to do. And I was the ag kid in class. Everybody else was kind of from the city and everything. So, I'll do what I know and something that's a little different. I'll do agricultural. So I kind of developed this idea for an app about Brandt. And then when I went to go apply for my internship, I slapped it on my resume and cover letter. And so it was included in there. I think that's one of the things that helped me get into the internship. So then I found myself interning at Brandt for a summer, where I kind of just did odds and ends and anything an intern does when you're working. So,
Well, I have a statement and then a question, I suppose. One is I can tell you without being connected to anyone at Brandt whatsoever that I can assure you that that's got you in the door.
as someone who hires people,
Yeah, and then the second thing is, did you get a chance to build that app?
the concept of the app was great, and then when you get down to the nitty gritty of what it would take to accomplish it, I mean, you're talking a mass production of data and API integration and stuff like this. Don't get me wrong, ideas still out there. It's just a matter of making sure it's practical and worth the time and money and investment, just like everything else. So,
Well, it's nice to know it's not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that it's still on life support. That's a cool story. So you were able to transition the internship into a full-time gig.
yeah, and I'll never forget the call when I was told that, hey, we're going to open up a position for you. We'd like you to come on full time. And like just how happy and excited I was because I worked on a farm. I loved it. I interned at Brandt where I loved it. And then now I get to continue on and I don't have to start fresh. I don't have to meet new people and learn a new company. I just kind of I get to keep moving, I guess. So started on right after college. I skipped graduation. I didn't even walk at graduation. I got in my car and drove home and started work the next day. I mean, that's how excited I was. So yeah, my first title here, I think, was marketing associate, where I really was kind of an all hands on deck or utility player. So I was doing event management and trade show coordination. I would help copyright a couple things for brochures and advertisements. So we're a small department for how big the company is. So there was just help needed all over the place. And I was kind of that fill in for whatever needed to be done, which I was happy to do. So
what size is your marketing department?
I think there are 7 of us.
Okay. And how big is Brandt?
We have 500 employees total,
Okay.
roughly, and so 7 of us in the department. We do a NASCAR sponsorship, so a couple of our guys, kind of manage that. We've got the retail side, we've got somebody managing that, and then the other side. So, just not a lot of people for all the different moving parts that we have going on around here.
I think that's a common story for a lot of manufacturers that size and scale. They find themselves, there's one or two people in the marketing department that are inevitably jack of all trades,
For sure.
and they can find. I find that those positions, in some way, uh, almost go one of two ways or paths. You get somebody that gets very comfortable being a jack of all trades and continues to be that, um, but maybe doesn't narrow in on too much of a focus that can help them advance in a career perspective. And then you have others who use that experience as a springboard for something next. And it seems to me that that's what you've done.
Yeah, so one of the projects, and this was just really good timing for me, is it had been decided that the company wanted to upgrade their website, and by upgrade I mean start over, start from scratch. So we were kind of using an older system. Still worked, still got everything done, but we wanted to be kind of newer and in more control of our website as it became more important. So my first day on the job, I remember hopping on the phone with the developers to just learn about how the new website was going to work. I didn't even know what a content management system was, and then here I am, like taking it in, like, oh, okay, what am I going to be doing? This is on me now. I'm the project manager for a whole new website for the company. So that project really kind of kickstarted my digital career, I guess you would say. And after I learned about the CMS and what wireframes were, and I just kind of kept falling in love with it. And I was like, man, this is some really, really cool stuff about how everything works. And then, being in control of the website is kind of my thing. It's my baby. It's kind of what I live and breathe every day at work. So um, I really just loved taking care of the website and getting it done, and that feeling of accomplishment when we launched the new website, and how much everybody liked it. It was really rewarding. So I really liked that aspect of it.
I saw some stat, and I should tell you that it was in no way related to our agency at Kula Partners, but around websites, like some crazy number of website quote unquote projects when they launch. Basically, the number one thing that the person has to say about it is they never want to be involved in that ever.
It was the complete opposite.
So the fact that that went off well is a great sign, and obviously is in no small part helped you fall in love with digital as a bit more of a direction. Well, that to be fair, you were coming up with app ideas in university, so I don't
So,
think we can.
yeah. Do you think that they gave you the website because you were the millennial in the room?
It could have been. I really think it was just, everybody else had their hands tied with other things, and then it was, there had to have they needed somebody to kind of manage this and keep track of it. And I had the bandwidth to do it at the time. I guess I am younger. You kind of fit that role of being the digital person when you are younger, I think. So I think it was everything kind of coming together at once. So.
The Kula Ring is proud to be a media sponsor of the 2019 Manufacture Ed Summit Conference, which is being held September 16th to 18th in Chicago, Illinois. Carmen and I will be live on site recording interviews for future episodes of the Kula Ring. You can save $200 now with the discount code KulaPartners200 at manufactureedsummit.com. That's manufactureedsummit.com.
You've been able to leverage that into a broader digital role where you're looking at app environments, dashboards, and things of the sort. And much, I think you said anything with the screen by Brandt has to come through you. So that's in some ways, I got to say, I don't think I've talked to a manufacturing marketer that said it in quite that way. Anything with the screen comes through.
Mm-hmm. And it
So it's interesting to me that you've been able to,
Encapsulate
define
it that way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it keeps a kind of broad spectrum on what I can be involved with, but yeah, it really is even the social media and stuff like that, falls underneath my belt. Not all the content and everything like that, but just the overall management of it kind of falls into my lap, which is good. And Brandt, we own several companies and several brands and subsidiaries. And so once we got the main website up and running, then it became, okay, well, maybe these other companies and brands that we own, it's time for them to get an upgrade. So then it just started kind of snowballing, where it was one after another. I would get one company or brand done, and then it was on to the next one. And that's still kind of happening today, where we're constantly just upgrading and improving everything that we have out there.
And how is that extended beyond web properties? So you mentioned apps and dashboards, but can you peel that back for me a little bit further and help me understand? I mean, it was, there was a time, of course, and everybody was just trying to simply create an app that was a replica of their website, and that was that. Um, I guess what's the current state of state of play at Brandt?
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to have an app. We knew we had to have something out there, just like you said, to be relevant, but we wanted it to be practical. And then I kind of broke down numbers and stats of saying, well, on our website, here's a tool that's being used most frequently by mobile users. And so by taking that information, we were able to say, well, maybe a tool like this, but in an app form, is our best bet and is practical. And so we've got a product portfolio of over 300 products, and people are always wanting information on the go. Sometimes our growers and customers, farmers, don't have service in their fields. They're out in the middle of nowhere. So we developed an app for end users and customers to find our product labels, find out product information, save them to their phone, and kind of have basically a product database in their pocket of everything we have to offer.
That's very cool, and that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
Having worked irrigating potato fields out of cell service,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
What are you talking about? That was even before cell phones were a thing.
No, I'm pretty sure cell phones were kind of maybe around.
Yeah, you just needed a suitcase to carry one.
Exactly.
Yeah. What Alex, the websites that you've been developing, you mentioned how much you enjoyed the process and the project. Is there something there, like what's the biggest learning that you've kind of taken away from diving into a corporate manufacturing
Yeah,
website?
so there's a couple different things that I just, well, one, I'm always learning. Like, no matter what I think I know, I'll get done with a website and be like, oh, maybe I could have done that different. But I guess overall, it's just kind of really thinking through start to finish on the navigation and how things work, and more kind of a user interface mindset, I guess, to your main navigation. What does that need to be the most useful to people? There's 1,000 different ways you can organize information, and kind of nailing it down from the beginning and getting buy-in on that has been extremely helpful. So, going in with I've done websites without wireframes, which turned out to not be as easy and, quick as I thought they would be. So really starting with that overarching plan and getting buy-in from it at the beginning. So that way you're, just about done. You're on the same page as all parties involved. So that's one of the biggest things. I've done a couple international websites where those were huge learning processes, understanding how to do translations and how different cultures and different countries works when it comes to websites. I can come in and tell our Brazilian company that we own, this is what your website's going to look at, but you need to listen to all parties involved and get their feedback and kind of take that, use what I know, use my experience, and create the best product possible from it.
For sure. And how I assume you're kind of paying attention to how those sites are doing now that they're live. What sorts of things have you maybe iterated on or learned since they've gone live?
Right. So sometimes, I'll get, well, now, people have kind of seen what we're capable of. So, what is the marketing department capable of as outputting for an online tool, which is a good thing. We want people to come to us for help. We want to help people. So sometimes they'll come to us with an idea and, they want this done. I'm like, all right, it's going to cost this amount of money. It's going to take this much time. And some people have kickback on it, but then after it's up and running, we're able to take the analytics and the data and say, well, you didn't want to do this tool because it was going to cost money, but actually in the month of September, it was our most visited page on the website, even more than the homepage. And so when you're kind of able to take these numbers and stats to everybody and kind of prove what something's worth based on the numbers, it really helps everybody understand that what you're trying to do and what you are doing can be practical, or on the other end of the spectrum, it can be turns out it was maybe a waste. Maybe it wasn't something that we needed to do. So, which we haven't had too many of, luckily.
Yeah, you made some smart bets along the way, it sounds like, and also had the wherewithal to put analytics around it to ensure that you could actually close the loop on that and be able to track your results. So, um, yeah, it takes both. It takes the good bets and the closed loop analytics, of
And
course.
that's kind of what I saw as an opportunity here is we were getting people coming to, you know, create these tools or different products. And then it just kind of hit me. I was like, wow, wait, I'm the person that's kind of doing this. What else can we be doing in this digital world that's not being done now that we can take advantage of? And also kind of here at the company, just because the way the department's structured is we don't have that ladder where it's like, okay, you work here 3 years, you're going to get promoted to this, or, you put in this much time, you get promoted. It's like, we're all just kind of here in our own little realms and working as a team together to get everything done. And just that there was this kind of opening and opportunity for somebody to do digital. That's kind of when I took the reins and was like, all right, this is what I want to do. This is what I enjoy doing for work. Let's make it practical and valuable for the company. So that's kind of how I started carving my own path, was, I guess, seeing the opportunity.
Absolutely, and I think there's something I kind of want to touch on here because it's further interesting to me that this innovation has happened within the ag category. Because so often in larger B2B manufacturing organizations, there's sometimes an attitude that, yeah, those buyers really don't want much from a web presence. They won't use it much. It's just it's a nice to have. Maybe it's not really seen as a priority in many of organizations, and that can be pretty evident when you look at their homepage. Um, but here we have a group of buyers who, from the outside looking in, I bet a lot of people think are pretty unsophisticated. And well, I guess I know that not to be true. It's been my impression over the years that farmers were very early adopters of computing technology and the internet and sharing of information via the web, and have and it's interesting to me that you've been able to kind of capture that and use that.
Right. So, the ag industry as a whole is unbelievably innovative when it comes to technology. You look at machinery now and the way we're able to collect data and everything from a combine, like it's insane. And then even technology through genetics and everything we're able to accomplish through how the way the plant works and operates. So it is like a truly innovative industry. There are just certain the buying process sticks out to me, and how that's pretty traditional. It's very built off relationships. It's kind of old school, but there is always going to be that opportunity and adaptation to using online tools to aid in the buying process. So I guess not replacing the buying process by any means, but just kind of helping assist it. Um, so
I can appreciate that, the not replacing the buying process and the thinking that the relationships obviously will still be important. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think if we revisited this 10 years from now, I'd be curious how much our opinions would change there.
Mm.
I don't know. I could see a number of scenarios where all of a sudden, no, relationships aren't that important anymore.
Yeah, we
There's
can
digital interfaces.
reorder directly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the phone support, online support, or all that other works. You know what I mean? Like, as people get more, I'll be
Yeah.
curious to see how that unfolds.
For now, though, how are your sales teams embracing or not embracing the tools that you've built for them? Well, for their customers.
so it has been, yeah. So they're all pretty, receptive, and they just love having, more tools built around them to help them. One thing that jumps out to me that I helped with a couple years ago was, you know, we didn't have a list of where to buy our products, and kind of a simple concept of where to buy, and it just didn't exist just because the data wasn't there, the information wasn't there. We sometimes sell to wholesalers, so we don't know where they go from the wholesalers. There was kind of uh, these holes in the distribution process where we didn't have the information we needed to create this tool. So what I helped do was work with the sales reps. Say, all right, in your area, give me all the retailers, all the places that can buy your information. I took the data from our ERP, compiled that, and then took all these lists and everything put it together, built this tool, kind of relatively simple on enter your zip code and I'll tell you where you can buy our stuff. And even things like that just really go a long way with them, kind of these simple concept stuffs. So they're all for any type of assistance they can get. It kind of relieves them taking a phone call or something on asking, well, where do I get this stuff? And so I think stuff like that kind of helps them see that what we're trying to do is aid. We're not trying to replace.
And I love the keep it simple notion of that idea too. I mean, people will get into boardrooms and brainstorm for 5 hours on innovative new ideas that they could launch, and it's like, yeah, and we could also just tell people where to buy our stuff, though. Yeah, yeah.
Novel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I agree with you that the change is coming. Nobody is ignoring it by any means. We know disruption is out there. It's going to come. It's going to hit, just like it has every other industry. But it's up to us to uh, be on the right side of it. Uh, you know, keep our process, keep doing what works, but yet be ready and anticipate these kind of changes that will eventually happen, I guess.
Well, in the spirit of that, let's turn the table a little bit and just kind of start instead of talking about what has happened, let's look ahead a bit. Because you're now, how long have you been at Brandt?
Oh man, I think 4 years now, full time.
Cool. So, you're getting your feet under you now for sure, and are making a significant impact there. I'd be curious, kind of as you look around the corner, as to what's next for the organization digitally. Can you give us any kind of insight without telling us too much?
Yeah, discussions definitely happen on what's happening in the industry. What can we do better? You always want to be innovative and have that next big idea, but it has to work well for the company. So I think finding that balance of being innovative enough to compete and satisfy your customers, stay relevant. But sometimes if you're too innovative and you come out jumping the gun and introduce a process, it can maybe sometimes turn people away. So finding that kind of sweet spot of being innovative, but yet keeping things still smooth and not throwing wild cards at your customers. So I guess what I see as one thing happening is just kind of using what's already there but kind of compiling it all together. So like I said, we're able to collect an unbelievable amount of data from a farm, whether that's soil tests, tissue tests, and different history rates of applications and things like this. So taking this data that exists and compiling it in a way to again aid us in what we're good at, especially on our retail side. So we've got customers that come to us for agronomic advice, but what if we can compile data and put it together and combine that with a little snippet from our agronomist on what they can do and what might work well for them this season? I think one of the biggest challenges in agriculture is just the number of variables that exist, whether it's weather or soil types, tissue type. I mean, the list can go on and on. Um, but data is being used, and I think it's going to keep being used with different pieces of technology to help present information to customers better and help them make better decisions.
That's I mean, it seems to me that you're onto something there. And like you say, you have so much data. It's a matter of extracting it from the various systems and finding a way to present it to those customers, and to provide some value add information along the way. That seems brilliant to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people are doing it. There's a couple companies out there that are kind of running this concept, and they've got the tools and the assets to make it happen. But so kind of looking at what are they doing, what's working for them, what information do we have, how can we maybe process and more custom tailor the recommendations or information to our specific.
Of course, of course. Oh, there'd be any number of ways that you could kind of hook on that idea and bend
Yeah.
it and make
There
it
you go.
better. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
that's a fun project ahead, or shall we say, product.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Alex, I wonder if we might be able to get some career advice as we close out the show.
For us?
Well, maybe. uh, but I think if there are folks listening who are at the start of their marketing career and kind of wish that 4 years from now they were a digital experience manager at a major manufacturer, Alex may have some unique insight there.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
So I guess what just always stands out to me the most, and what helped me the most, I think, was, I got started. I was a marketing associate. I was coming to work. I was, doing what I was told, working as hard as I could to accomplish, basically to-do lists on what needed to be done. And then you kind of just have, or at least I did when I first started working, well, I'm going to put in time, I'm going to get promoted. Like, you kind of just assume these things are going to happen, maybe because you hear, oh, this person's been here for 10 years and they got a promotion or whatever. And it wasn't really until I realized, like, you got to do something to provide value in order to make that promotion or that pay raise or whatever it may be happen. And so once I kind of saw, how can I add more value to the company, that's when it really clicked and was like, okay, here's what I need to do in order to move myself, right? And so again, just looking for those opportunities on what would add value. So like one quick funny story is, we have the 26 locations here in Illinois, and there was one day I was driving to one of them and I typed it into Google and I couldn't find it. And I was like, okay, we don't have a Google business account set up. So I turned around, drove back to the office and set up our Google business, claimed all the 26 locations, made sure they had the right phone numbers, addresses, business hours, all this stuff. And I kind of showed the boss and was like, hey, by the way, I did this, everything's all good. People can get directions now. It's like, oh, that's fantastic. Wouldn't even thought about doing that. That's awesome. And then, I go back a month later and I'm able to show him, okay, well, we had, 6,000 requests for directions to all our locations. There was 3,000 phone calls made this month to the phone numbers listed, and kind of showing them the numbers as well to kind of back my decision up. And so that was just one thing where I saw the opportunity, how it would add value to the company, made it happen, and it ended up going a long way. So,
and did so with just good, solid blocking and tackling digital fundamentals.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a beautiful lesson. Well, Alex, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. I think I told you last time we chatted is, you kind of like show up to work, you work hard, you get things done, you're appreciated around here, but then to have somebody else from the outside reach out to, kind of say they want to hear from you, it's pretty humbling. So I really, really do appreciate you having me on. So
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks for listening to The Kula Ring with Carman Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at kulapartners.com/The Kula Ring. That's KULApartners.com/The Kula Ring.